loss. Finally, let me finish with the loss of John McLaughlin. Serious business. What a loss. There he is. It happened at midnight last night, and this is Hardball, the place for politics. Let me finish tonight with the loss of John McLaughlin, who died last night at midnight. John spent a good part of his life as a Jesuit, a New England Jesuit, a force of nature and a personality type of which I became acquainted with at Holy Cross. He was of the old school, the kind of Jesuit professor who would dictate what was true, what was important to know, who was right, who was a good student, and who got an A. There would be graded exams never to be returned to a student, not even a pop quiz. You never knew what your grade was till you got it. As I said, it was all quite dictatorial, and what you saw on television on the McLaughlin Group all those years was the perfect exhibition of what it was like to sit in a Jesuit classroom back in the 60s working backward. I got to know John as a guest panelist. He would get the word to me early in the week, and this was back in the late 80s, and I'd get up for the Friday taping, including coming up with a prediction for the show. But the best time I had with John McLaughlin was when we were in Berlin together during the time the wall came down. We bumped into each other at the Aspen Institute's headquarters, which happened to be on the site of Joseph Goebbels' house, right there on that leafy drive over Lake Wannsee. We agreed to spend a day driving through East Germany, which was still behind the Iron Curtain. We stood over Potsdamer Platz and watched the British soldiers serve coffee out of giant Jeep cans to the desperate East Germans coming through the wall for the first time. I heard John at that moment pretending to be one of the obliging British officers feeling sorry for the desperate Germans. Poor devils, I heard him say. Well, that day we also toured Potsdam, the Berlin suburb, where President Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill met after VE Day. We went to Weimar and ended up in Leipzig, where the peace movement had begun in a Lutheran church where the move to bring down the East German regime was warming up. Well, the major stop that day was Buchenwald, the concentration camp, where the old communists who let us in after dark regaled us with propaganda about how the true victims of Buchenwald there were the Russian officers. John said, "Any Jews killed here?" He interrupted the guy. It was a perfect question for a guy who, however clownish his act, always knew what the argument was all about. Well, that day we visited Wittenberg, the cathedral on whose giant door Martin Luther nailed those 95 theses challenging the power of the Roman Catholic Church. In that dusty old German church, I lost track of John for a while, only to find him standing over the tomb of the great Reformation leader who had risked burning at the stake by standing up to the European order, and yet had succeeded in creating the Protestant Revolution. And there was John McLaughlin, the old Jesuit, standing in that old cathedral, asking the question as he stood on Martin Luther's tomb, a question only he had in mind. Not so much whether Luther was right on the theology, but how he knew he could get away with saying it and doing what he did. How did he know, John asked as he stood there. How did he know? Theatrical, pyrotechnical, a firecracker of a man. John McLaughlin, you were damn good company.
We're into subjectivity. No. Do we need a psychologist at this point? No. Would this be handled by a... Should we get a psychiatric report? Let me give you to determine what the intent was. How about a U.S.-Japanese free trade zone? Should he talk about that? Yeah. Would that be a good idea? Is he doing anything like this?
I don't know. No.
Do you know if he's doing anything?
Wait a minute. Kindly relinquish when you hear my voice, okay? Relinquish.
Networks have announced their new fall programming, and they've got a new programming called, starring you and Fred, called The Twin Geeks.
The groundhog did not see its shadow. Another victory for McLaughlin. Bye-bye.
Well, of course, it was the real bye-bye the other night, but for over 30 years, until his death yesterday at age 89, John McLaughlin showcased his irascible wit and combative nature on his weekend roundtable show, The McLaughlin Group. His style, insight, and sharp tongue won him recognition as a sage of political opinion, quickly earning him the rare distinction of being parodied by Dana Carvey on Saturday Night Live. Let's watch.
Issue number 6. What did you have for breakfast today, Eleanor?
Some cantaloupe.
Morton Town, USA.
I had poached eggs and toast.
Jackjamondo.
Bacon and eggs.
Patty Patty Buke Buke.
I'm thinking waffles, maybe a little...
Wrong. You all had Special K with banana.
Well, I had the privilege of being invited on the show as a guest panelist in the late 80s and early 90s. Here's a clip from one of my appearances in 1993, just 2 days after Bill Clinton was inaugurated as our president.
Chris Matthews.
I thought he figured out something really important months ago, which was this inauguration was an historic event. It was a transition from 50 years of men who had served in World War II in one capacity or another, who sold nostalgia as their basic political bread and butter. He's selling adventure. This is our time. I think the public loves it. I think the poll data is going to go through the roof next week, regardless of the Zoe Bear, because the country now realizes we can look positively to the future for the first time since the 40s.
Well stated, and thanks for sitting in for Jack. He's recovering from the inaugural parade. He was on the Sesame Street float. He was the Cookie Monster.
We're back with the roundtable. Eddie, as well as Clarence and Tom, who are both regular guests on the McLaughlin group. I want to go to you. Let me get all the Clarence because we were on it together. We were vying.
Eggs and toast.
You know, you and I used to vie for the alternate seat. Remember the alternate delegate seat? Every couple of months we get a call.
That's right. That's right. I can't believe he's gone, Chris. I mean, really, I can't believe how much a part of my life he's become. I was doing the show off and on since 1988.
When did you get the call during the week? Was it Monday or Tuesday?
Well, the longer time went on, the later he would get. The more popular the show became and all that. But usually around Wednesday or Thursday, something like that.
Yeah, Tom, there was a time when it first started in the early 80s when Reagan was president. Everybody you knew watched it every Saturday night. It was on at one time, and everybody watched it at 7:30. Then maybe go out for dinner or do something. But everybody said, "Did you hear this? What about McLaughlin tonight?" It was unlike any program, and it wasn't like these angry right-wing shows or some left-wing shows. It was fun.
Right. It was, and it is, and you know that legacy. In many ways, and everyone knows this. I was when the show started in '82. I hadn't been born. I was born in '86, and I grew up watching it with my dad. Was State Department Foreign Service. So we grew up watching it in CNBC Europe. And when I came out here, sent an email. I wrote about this in my piece today. Sent an email to comments at McLaughlin. Can I come on? Just being ballsy, and get to come on. I get to be on with a Pulitzer-wise pride. To be exposed to that environment. He knew that based on previous experience, I didn't earn that place, but he, I guess, saw something. He gave me that opportunity. I owe him everything, and he was a very decent and tough man. And what you saw on the set was the real guy, and also behind the scenes, because I would help him with some, producer work. The phone calls. I just wish some of those had been recorded. Just the ludicrous things he would say. Called me once late at night talking about David Ignatius's head and how it moves in an odd direction when he speaks. And I just why he had to. But it was like, okay, bye bye, and he would put it down. And it was, that great man, and he'll be remembered though in those visualizations.
I never had more fun with a guy. A day I spent with him in East Germany.
Yeah.
The strangest day of my life, and he is just a great. I said last night, great company. Yeah. He was great company for always. Thank you, Andy Linsky. See what you missed being.
I know.
Anyway, Clarence Page, thank you, and Tom Rogan, who was also a Tom. When we were finished, let me finish with those two 500-meter racers who stopped to help each other. You're watching Hardball, the place for politics.